Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's session. On behalf of everyone at Rev.io, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. I'm Delaney Dobkowski, Rev.io's Field Marketing Manager. Before we begin the presentation, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. First, audio will automatically come in through your speakers. Second, a recorded version of this webinar will be emailed to you within 2 days. Third, we'll be having a Q&A session at the end of the event. Please submit your questions via the Zoom control panel at any point during the live presentation. For those of you just joining us, welcome. Today, Kevin Emmert, VP of Product at Kesis, will be discussing how to stop losing money and automate your sales to billing flow. Kevin is the Vice President of Products at Kesis. He brings an extensive background in software development and daily work with the Rev.io API. Kevin's passion is finding the best solutions for whatever business problem is out there. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Thank you, Delaney. All right. Hey, everybody. As Delaney said, my name is Kevin Emmert. I'm the Vice President of Products. And a lot of what I do, one of the main things I do is work with Rev.io customers to understand their pain points and design solutions to address them. The subject we're going to talk about today comes up very frequently, and I'm sure it's the reason that you're all here. So let's get started. So first question you may be asking is, why am I losing money? So as many of you have manual processes, for instance, like swivel chairing from system to system, which can lead to costly human errors, which also requires time intensive reconciliation. You may also be losing money by going back and forth with customers of products that have been sold by your sales team, but maybe don't exactly line up with the products that you are able to bill or you're able to support and provision. You're also, another way you may be losing money is your business is unable to scale without adding additional staff to basically cover these manual processes that you're going through swivel chairing. So that's one of the ways, and really what we're going to focus on today is, part of it is the process of, your internal process, and the other part is the automation. So that's kind of why you're losing money, kind of how is this happening? Well, if your sales team can sell everything, there's downstream implications of your profitability if they're selling suboptimal products, or basically, if you give them free reign to resell anything from your third party carriers, maybe some of those really aren't a profitable strategy in the long run. Another way this is happening is your back office workflow and your provisioning overhead directly impacts your customer experience and your resource investment. So being able to kind of control those costs and to target areas for improvement is really going to be one of your main problems that's affecting your bottom line. Another is the delay in the ability to bill customers accurately and efficiently. That's also another drag in a way that you're losing money. So throughout this webinar, we're going to talk about strategies on how to approach these issues. So first thing, I know there's a lot of different organizations out there, and you're probably under, some sort of combination of these issues. So the first one is, some people are 100% manual. A lot of times if you're a smaller organization, that's just kind of the reality. So every company has some flavor of manual. So for example, sales goes out and sells, maybe they complete their order, then they're sending the email to your back office team that has to do the provisioning, call up the customers, determine maybe some of the finer points of doing that. And then maybe they're billing, maybe, previously you were putting it into QuickBooks, you're sending invoices out of QuickBooks. So this can work. And a lot of times, when you're a smaller organization, that's kind of the reality of it doesn't make sense to, invest in automation if you don't have the volume to kind of justify it. So the next kind of step up from that 100% manual process is SaaS system juggling. So, for instance, an example of that would be, you've got HubSpot or MasterStream or Salesforce on the front end, which that's all your point of sales. Then what happens after that? It's like, well, then you're taking that customer data, you're doing a swivel chair into your provisioning system. So a lot of times that's a manual process, and then you're doing your swivel chair into your billing system. So, this is a reality of a lot of places, and there may always be some sort of manual movement of data between the two until it makes sense to automate all of it. And then the kind of next step up from that is where I believe a lot of people want to get to, is that single pane of glass. So your organization has, a place where your employees log in. They're able to control the different SaaS systems, because some people might live in Rev.io. It doesn't make sense to, re-automate all the functions within Rev.io, especially for your billing side of your business. But if you only have one function to say create customers, or to say that something's been provisioned and get that into your billing system, then your single pane of glass makes a lot more sense. So your employees won't have to log into 10 different systems. They can go to that one place and then perform those 12 different functions, but just in one place. This also leads to a lot more accountability, a lot more ability to track exactly what's happening and have that kind of administrative oversight. So today, wherever your organization is, we're going to focus on these different areas for improvement. You've got sales, provisioning, and back office workflow, and the billing. So we're going to focus on at least a process improvement on each of those and different automation opportunities. All right. So sales team can sell everything. So how are you losing money because they can sell everything? Well, if your sales team can sell hundreds or thousands of products, basically you guys know this even better than I do. Maintaining those products and billing for them can become an administrative headache. So what should your sales team be able to sell, and kind of who owns that product catalog, and like how it's updated? So what a lot of people do is, they go through this painful process of, okay, I've set up my point of sale system. It has all of my products in there. It matches up with, Rev.io. And so they're all in sync. So then everything comes in. But if you don't have a long-term strategy of like, okay, now a new product gets added, how is that data getting over from one system to another? Because it's really, a constant maintenance issue. It's a constant, strategy issue of like how you're using that and moving that data. So what's my strategy? So really the first thing you want to do is pick a system of record, which is, we're going to focus first on, let's just say the product catalog. So having that discipline to say the only place products are going to be added are going to be in Rev.io, or they're only going to be in Salesforce or MasterStream. And then once that product gets added, then we can automatically move it, or you can have, your internal process to move that product to your billing or back to your point of sale system. So why is this so important? For example, if you're billing from Rev.io, there's a few things that your point of sale systems will need to know. You need to know a product ID. You're going to need to know the type of service it is. You're going to need to know the provider for that particular service, or otherwise you can't create that product within Rev.io. So probably what's happening for you today is, if they don't line up exactly, someone's on your billing side is going to have to make some sort of manual judgment as to what service type this is, what provider it is, which is fine and it works, but it doesn't scale as much, especially if you can automate it. So the goal here for having those product catalogs in sync between the two systems is the long-term strategy of getting automation. So if new providers get added, that also can affect your product catalog. And so understanding how that affects your potential automation and really affects your process is a big part of that strategy and ability to have those two systems in sync. So you're either going to get this figured out on the front end, or you're going to have your billing team having to figure out every time an order comes in. So how far can you go with this initial automation would depend on your product sync. And so I'm going to kind of go over just a quick example of how we could automate. So the simplest way to start, you have to start with a trigger for when you want to create your bill. So for instance, if you're in Salesforce or HubSpot, you're going to have your order there, or sorry, your opportunity. Opportunity changes from a status of opportunity 1, or if you're in MasterStream, for instance, you get an order created, or even if you're going in the 100% manual strategy, you could set up an endpoint to receive an email from your salesperson with an attached file. So the first step you're going to do is you're going to create a customer in your billing platform. And with that, you could attach a file with the billing details. So that would probably be like your most simple automation of just, customer creation, attach a file, and then someone has to do the manual steps of basically opening the file, reading it in. But at least if you set up that automation, then that eliminates that need for your billing person to log into your point of sale system to figure out what they need to do. Now they're just living in their billing system and they can read that. Now, in this case, we attached a file. And the reason we attached a file is because our product catalogs weren't synced up. It didn't have the service types, or it didn't have the provider for the services. So we couldn't automate that creation. So the next step up, if I was going to make a little bit more complicated automation, would be I've got my products, I've got my services, I've got my providers, all of that in my point of sale. So that way, when I create that customer and I create that request, I'm adding all the products in there, and there's no manual intervention in between the two. So what this does is it establishes an integration between the systems, it links them together, and then you also have, when you're creating that customer, you'll have the cross-reference, the cross-reference ID. And what that means is the next thing you want to automate will be easier. So by setting up your first automation, it's going to really lead to your next one, because you've done a lot of the heavy lifting of, talking to both systems. Now you just need to add some business logic for the next thing that you want to automate. So how can I save? Well, the things we discussed are really investment in the future of your business that will pay off in the long run. Decision will come. Do you want to invest in additional resources, or refine your processes and add automation to your toolkit? Giving your sales team these guardrails and kind of having that discipline to say, like, this is the product catalog, this is what we're using to automate, or really maybe even if you aren't automating, you're making your billing team's life easier by having these specific products that directly map to what you're billing. Then it can actually, really reduce that churn and the back and forth with your customers. So we talked about sales. Now we're kind of moving on to the next side of things, which is your provisioning and back office workflow. So sales have sold it. Now you actually have to create your services. So your company's workflow is the heart of your business, and how things have been done in the past can work, but can they scale? So there's so many little steps that need to be taken depending on like the deal complexity. A workflow solution will become necessary once you reach that critical mass. So the kind of question I want you guys to ask yourself is, how long does it take an average deal once it's signed to send the first bill? And what steps take the longest for you guys? And then how many different systems do you provision in? And do those systems have APIs? So all of these questions will kind of lead you to, what makes sense to potentially try to automate, or potentially, make that process improvement to reduce. But if you don't know what step is taking the longest, or you don't know what systems have APIs, then you don't know kind of where to start and what makes the most sense to target for the most savings. So what's my strategy? So, there's a lot of out of the box solutions for workflows, and there's also, custom solutions that could be built. And, workflow systems can be expensive, but how much functionality do you really need? And how simple can you start off? So again, we'll talk through a kind of automation example. So what if there was a trigger in your point of sale system, kind of like we talked about before, which is, an opportunity gets changed to an opportunity one. And then what if you had a workflow system where, this is where your employees are working out of it and they just get a checklist created based on, maybe just the fact that there's an order. So they get the notification that an order was created. Maybe you're putting your sold case paperwork together, and then, this gets assigned to somebody. So they don't have to log into their point of sale system. They now get this on the workflow. And then what I kind of created here was just a basic checklist of, hey, I need to create my customer and billing. I need to create my request. I need to get my attachment. And then, certain things you can't automate, which would be your kickoff call, and then, products provisioned, which these are like really generic examples of just a general checklist that someone's going to have to go through. But if you did implement, which I would call this, your most simple workflow solution, which is just a checklist that somebody has to go through, at least from an administrative perspective, you would know how long it's taking from when something's sold until something is provisioned. And then you could even track, hey, I saw that these 3 checks got done, and then our kickoff call is always taking 3 or 4 days before that happens. And then, being able to kind of look at your processes and really understand where those pain points are. So the reason I picked these 3 checks here is because those are all targets for automation, which really, as if you're looking to set up a back office workflow system, you start with these different steps or these different checks, and then that almost gives you a target for what to automate. Hey, I can automatically create that request and billing. I can automatically create that customer. And then as you kind of expand as an organization, as you make these checklists more specific to your orders that are coming in, you can add more steps. And then you can also, if you're provisioning in 5 different systems, you can see like, oh, hey, these 3, we've already automated those. I've got these other 2 are our next targets for automation, where you don't have to automate everything out of the gate, but you can, select your targeted systems. And by starting with some sort of workflow system, you can really, trigger those additional events. So when you get done, when your employee gets done in your back office workflow system, they set provisioning to complete, then maybe this request gets handed off to your billing side. So a lot of this could be done within a workflow, or maybe it's even done within your single pane of glass whenever you can get to that point. So how can I save? So a lot of times, people have been growing, or people have, perfected their process over the years. They've got their employees that know it well. But as I'm sure everyone on this call is part of an industry that's growing pretty rapidly. And in order to get new people ramped up, or when people leave, that's really a big vulnerability to your organization. Because if you're trying to incorporate somebody new, how fast they're going to be able to pick it up, how they're going to know to do all of those little steps. If you don't have any oversight or accountability there, that could really be a big vulnerability to your ability to grow and scale. So think of the automation as a new employee, though, that you want to constantly improve and invest in. So your process should grow as your business grows. It's not necessarily something that you do one time. It's just like an employee that can do, a little bit of work in the beginning, but more and more as it goes. And obviously it doesn't go on vacation or take breaks and can run 24 hours a day. You find value, but really to make this effective for you, you have to find the value of your own business by adding these efficiencies, and you really increase employee engagement by reducing that manual data entry. Because I don't know any people I talk to that say how much they love to swivel chair and re-enter in the same data into multiple systems. So we've talked about sales, we've gone on to our workflow and kind of talked about, different processes and different automation points. And the last kind of focus is going to be on billing. So really we've kind of touched on this a little bit already, is that this lack of consistent data, not having your product catalog synced between your billing and your sales system can lead to a lack of consistent data or inaccurate bills, or even really maybe it's just one big accounting mistake for a customer that could lead to a bigger headache. The initial reconciliation of what you're provisioning, verifying what you are about to bill, can really be a cumbersome process. And that automated provisioning and that automated, you know, the automatic creation of products can really lead to a much better customer experience and a much more accurate billing experience. So that lack of cohesion between systems is really what's cutting into your bottom line, because how much time, being able to identify how much time your employees are spending on, making sure something's provisioned, making sure that you're billing it accurately, and making sure that what your customer wanted is actually what's turned on, or even if it's possible to turn that on. So what's my strategy on billing? So first is that automation, creating your customer, cross-referencing with other systems to keep some reference systems to allow automation. And you could also take advantage of the event-driven automation to update other platforms. So for example, maybe in your CRM system, you want to know what customers are active, or maybe you want to know specifically what products they have, because maybe you want to try and upsell them on what products they maybe do have or don't have. So if you're syncing, hey, maybe every day you're saying like, here are the products that they have active, or maybe you had a customer that had products that were active and they then turned off that service. Maybe you want your salespeople to reach out to them to understand what happened. All of these automations to empower, each of your different parts of your business to know what's going on and keep them in the loop so they can identify issues and address them, hopefully beforehand, hopefully before your customer cuts off service. But really, that reconciliation between what services are on, what they're billed for, and really, if we're talking about your bottom line, that reconciliation between the two systems of what's provisioned or what's active and being billed, or maybe what's not active and not being billed, is really going to cut into your bottom line. So really, using the system as your record of truth, we use it to populate, using your billing platform, or maybe your point of sale system as your single system of record, will really help you, synchronize your data between all these systems. So how can I save? So it's an ongoing effort to keep your bills accurate and your different SaaS systems in sync. So automation will either be a part of your strategy or adding new staff. One of those is going to scale better than others. So chances are your business is using some manual processes that don't make sense to automate. Some of them do. Also, you have SaaS systems that do a few things that automation wouldn't be worth investment, but a process or automation improvement is an investment in the long-term health of your business. I recommend starting with a small project, know the value, being able to identify like that as a pain point and building from there. This should be part of your regular conversations and planning, and you're going to grow and you're going to need to scale with that growth. So, having a technical partner that can help with this type of planning can be a critical part of setting your business on the right path. So if you're interested, I know a company that can help with that. So any questions?
That was great, Kevin. Thank you so much for your time. Before we begin the Q&A portion of the presentation, I'd like to thank our audience for joining us today and review a few housekeeping items. The first reminder is that we're always interested in topics that you'd like to learn more about, so please submit your topic ideas in the Q&A box. In addition, the full webinar recording will be emailed to you within 2 days. Lastly, if you've submitted any questions during the presentation that don't get addressed in the live Q&A, we will be following up with you individually via email. Now I'd like to ask a few questions from our audience. What is an example of doing a starting automation? What does that look like?
Sure. So I've been trying to focus on, if you wanted to start small, it's usually a good idea to, identify the process that you want to start with, and then everything can kind of build from there. So if we're doing a starting automation, in a for instance, we a lot of times we work in Amazon, so you can basically create an event listener, and that event listener can be used to create a customer in your billing system. So there are functions in Amazon that everyone can take advantage of that allows your business to have its own digital storefront or API. So, you know, I know a lot of times that's what you hear about, Rev.io and other big businesses, that they have their own API. That's how you get information or you send information from them. For us, when we set up a new customer, that's part of the automated setup. So you can have that API. Maybe it's just one endpoint to start off, which is hey, for Salesforce, when you create a new customer, or with HubSpot, when a new opportunity changes its status, that'll notify you through this API endpoint. Then you can trigger these different events. So you have your business logic within just a regular function that then updates, let's say Rev.io. So you'd have to have your authentication on either side for your starting automation. You have your business logic in the middle, and then you're pushing your data to the other side. So you really don't even need persistent data for that. You're just, because you have your two systems, you would see that happen. Maybe we send out an email if something fails. So you can really do that simple automation and then build from there, which is really kind of what I was trying to focus on with the checklist, which is, hey, if you want to start off, let's start off simple. Hey, here's a checklist of 10 things. We're not automating any of them. We just are assigning them to a person. They can manually go through, check off the list, and then move on to the next step. But it's really on that employee to get it done. And then over time, think of that checklist as like, here are the things that we need to do for our organization, which is automate every one of these steps. And so some of those are going to be more feasible than others.
Have you done any integrations with an accounting ERP such as NetSuite?
Yes. Yeah, we've done NetSuite to Rev.io. We for the work that we've done with NetSuite was the customer wanted to just bill out of NetSuite. So we take the Rev.io invoices, push over all that data to NetSuite, then the customer bills out of NetSuite. And when those payments come in, we take the payment data from NetSuite and we push that into Rev.io. So that was definitely a learning process. NetSuite just actually, it was been about exactly a year ago, moved from a SOAP API to a RESTful API, and so there were some pain points as they were kind of rolling that out, but we've done that, and it's actually been pretty good integration for us.
What automation has Kesis built?
So we build a lot of them. Probably our most common one that we're doing for a good number of customers is from Rev.io to QuickBooks, just creating journal entries, using your payment data or your, or products sold or invoiced, and pushing all of that into QuickBooks as a journal entry. I'd say that's the most common one. We've also automated, from Salesforce, creating customers in Rev.io, pulling master stream orders to create customers, requests, and products. And that's really, I'd say as we've gone through, talking to different customers who use Salesforce or talking to customers who use MasterStream, really that product catalog, lining up between the two systems, or being able to interpret what that order looks like in MasterStream, and then what it should look like as we're creating that bill within Rev.io, has really been, there's a big lift in getting that there, because right now a lot of people's, the billing side of their business knows how everything should be set up, and they're doing that every day. They're making that interpretation, and if you're going to automate that data needs to exist either in your point of sale system, or in your billing system in order to interpret it, or some sort of middle layer that knows, hey, this product, it belongs to Verizon, and we've got to have this service type attached to it. And so without knowing that on the sales side, somewhere in the middle, either you're taking the time from an employee perspective, or you're using the automation to make that determination. Another example of automation is we're doing the activation of SIMs, which really, in that case, that's a single pane of glass situation where the customer is empowered to, set up that automation and do bulk activations. Another example of automation would be we set up an automatic reconciliation with NetSapiens, in which the um, the the services that they're billing versus the services that are on, we do an automation to determine, if everything that's being billed should be billed, or everything that's turned on should be turned on. And that was really, a good time saver from a cost perspective of, how people are running their business, and really being aware of what's being billed and what they're liable for, um, from a customer and reconciliation perspective. And we've done quite a few more too, but I'll try and I'll stop right there.
Well, that looks like those are all the questions we have for today. Kevin, thank you so much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
All right, great. So I see if I had anything. Oh, there we go. Yeah, if you do want to reach out to Kesis, here's some emails, and that's obviously me first, and Chafin and Mark are also on the call. So I appreciate your time, and thank you for coming.